The harder the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A fiercest serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Keep rolling.
So, before we begin, really important, we're reading that book together on the Donner Party.
Yes, sir.
And I have to say, like, the worst guilt I've ever had reading a book, because I didn't realize that I always snack while I'm reading. Like, I'm just reading these people starving and eating each other, and the dad's like, "You gotta eat me, daughter. Like, that's how you live on." And I'm like on my last pistachio, like, good.
I will say that them like hoarding strips of like flesh in their backpacks when they go, I think they go to like a Native American village, and they don't tell them that they have like man meat in there.
Yeah, Hannah and I were just talking about it. From the same Native American clan that, like, they killed 2 Native Americans and then went to that clan.
So this is like Colfax, I believe, up where like modern day Colfax is.
Yeah.
They like rock in there with like some. The point is like, they made it sound kind of good. I was like, ooh, human jerky. You know what I mean? Like, bro, if I'm starving, let me get a piece of that backstrap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right,
I don't know.
because they had other food, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to keep it just in case. Like, this is my dessert."
This is for emergency purposes only. How far are you? Did you finish it?
Yeah, I finished it.
I'm about 80%.
I loved it.
Oh, dude, it's so good. I'm going. I've never been, but on Sunday for Mother's Day, we're gonna go to Donner Lake, and we're going to the museum. I've never been to the museum.
That sounds like something that you should do on Mother's Day. Like,
I love you so much that I would eat you if I had to.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
no. I've driven by there a bunch. There's always on the family
course.
vacation, like, let's do it. And then, like, no one ever pulled the trigger.
Yeah, it's in Truckee, I believe, which I
Yes.
love Truckee. I'm a
Right.
huge Truckee fan. I actually asked my wife to marry me at Donner Lake.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have like there's, an affinity there.
Did you do, like, I love you so much I could just eat you up?
Yes. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Super intense. They made a horror movie that's free on YouTube that I kind of want to watch.
Cannibal the Musical?
No, it's is that a
Have
thing?
you watched Cannibal the Musical? No. Oh my god. Okay, listeners, if you haven't seen Cannibal the Musical, it's hilarious. We used to watch it in college all the time. It's like our great drinking movie.
Yeah, we should probably say what book we're talking about.
Yeah. What is it? Under the Indifferent Stars?
Yes, sir. Under the
fantastic.
Indifferent Star. It's about the Donner Party coming into California. Just, man, dude. Then it's crazy. They literally, like, it was a matter of 2 weeks. They left 2 weeks late. It would have changed, like, everything.
Yeah, they were supposed to leave before May, and they
May
left
1st,
like May
13th or
Yeah,
something
it was
like that.
And it was like the coldest year on record or something.
I was, and I know we should be saving this for, like, the book club, but, like, the entire time I was like, when are we going to run into some Mormons? Because I knew that was going to be a topic of conversation, because the Mormons were headed out west to, like, be like, religious persecution. That's all I can really say about that without going too deep into it.
Just avoid that one completely.
I'm not touching this.
All right.
So, hey, dude, today's topic of conversation is current conflicts.
Yeah, this was, everybody, welcome to Battle Buddies. Spencer had this great idea that we would do at ease, which would mean that we would just, quickly, easily look up modern conflicts going on, and that it won't make me cry during my lunch hour as I'm reading through yet another jihad.
Right. So
Great.
rather than reading books on a particular battle from decades and decades ago, we decided to kind of casually talk about things that are currently happening did you watch any mainstream media news in your casual research for this?
I specifically avoided it.
Me too.
Yeah, no way.
I specifically avoided. Yeah. Interestingly enough, kind of like both of the subjects that I found and looked up, like weren't really brought up on most of the mainstream news cycles within these last couple of years, which kind of made me go on and like in my mind thinking about like the Illuminati, and then I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little bit. MK Ultra, the whole bit,
Yeah, we're just wasn't gonna get people to watch it.
So do you want to tell me what you
Yeah,
want to go first?
I'll go on one of mine first.
Yay.
These are rough. These are just rough.
He's looking down at his paper and he's like,
all right, so both of mine are from Africa.
oh no.
So like I've been on an Africa kick lately.
Interesting.
With literature.
Oh, perfect.
Like I read Power of One last summer and I loved it. It's like the South African like hero story of like this white dude becoming a boxer in South Africa in the 40s.
Oh, that's cool.
It's awesome. And it's all about like how like kids don't really understand racism. And so like he just needs a teacher and a father, and so he just meets a bunch of different teachers and fathers essentially of like different walks of life, and just becomes this awesome boxer.
It's a novel?
Yeah, it's called Power of One. It's wonderful. But it got me on this kick because they talk about like Shaka a lot, and they talk about like all the different even just languages of South Africa, and like which languages are better for like rhyming. So like which ones become worker songs more often because you can like free verse quicker off of it. And so it was like, yes, like I'm all about this. And then I read A Long Walk to Water this year, which is just an easy read. And it's about Sudan. It's about the child soldiers in Sudan. And it's a real story of it. But it's a cool read because it's like young adult. And you can read it in the morning. It's like 100 pages of like a half-size book. So you read it really quickly. And if everyone read it, there wouldn't be any issues in the world, essentially. Like it's just like
it solves racism.
Yeah, well, it's just like I was just thinking, I was like, this book's super easy to read, and if everyone read it, I bet there would be a lot less conflict because
interesting perspective.
It's just a good perspective. So anyway, that had me on the Sudan stuff, and it's just so depressing. But yeah, we'll go over the Sudan one first. So in Long Walk to Water, he's in Sudan. He's a Dinka, which is the tribe. That's like his racial tribe. And I was drawing a lot of Guns, Germs, and Steel off of it, where it was talking about like hunters and gatherers in that area of Sudan would be cattle raisers and like free grazers because the crops wouldn't be able to go from Mesopotamia over to that area. And so because of that, and because there's a heavy dry season, they fight with neighboring hunter-gatherers for water and for cattle resources. And so that's how their societies like evolved. So then there's the Dinka, and then there's the Nuer. Most of the year they're like cool in their own areas. And then as things dry up, they end up going into each other's territories fighting for the little bit of water. So they've been having these conflicts forever.
So resource battles straight up, pretty much.
Yeah, and then I was reading things that I hadn't even considered when I was first learning about it, which is like climate change has not helped this issue.
What?
Like it getting warmer has made these conflicts more common. And that was depressing. So anyway, Sudan, for those of you that don't know, like the big conflicts with the child soldiers in the 80s was that the Muslim government wanted to establish everybody as Muslim, and there was oil in Sudan, and so there became this huge civil war between like the North and the South, and like the Dinkas and Nuers and all the tribes, like they all became essentially child soldiers, either to fight for the government or against the government. It was like really messy. It was horrible. And so in South Sudan now, they are trying to establish this peace, and it's been not great. But one thing that happened recently, and this was a couple of years ago, but I've heard nothing about it, and I find it very, very interesting. They tried to have a coup, and so there's just been this civil war essentially within South Sudan that's been awful. But in terms of battle, what I just wanted to talk about was there's been so much civilian killing over the last like 5 years in this that farmers haven't been able to farm, and the UN is freaking out because it's costing like $1 billion a year to like try to do humanitarian aid, and the humanitarian aid is getting like really aggressive, and like they're having to shoot people, and like their soldiers that they're bringing in are like not just what I would imagine the UN soldiers normally do, which is probably just like, hey, you don't come over here because we're the UN soldiers. And I don't know this for sure, but that's what I assume would happen. And instead, they're like having to be aggressive and fire on people.
Oh no, dude.
So anyway, farmers haven't farmed since like 2016, and in 2018 they thought they were all going to starve. And I think there's like 7 million people this year that are just starving essentially.
What?
And so it's like a famine battle that I'm seeing right now in South Sudan that is like freaking me out. Like
right now,
there are just people starving. Hundreds of thousands of people.
Dude, so did you, while you were doing all this and you were like looking up information, you're like, why is nobody talking about this?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, this is really intense.
Like, cool, Ukraine, we get it, but like also Sudan.
Yeah, also Sudan.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that was one of the like conflicts that I was having in my heart and soul while I was like reading. I was like, man, the world's kind of big though. Turns out.
Right. Huge.
Yeah, huge.
Huge. Yeah. As of April 2021, there are 7 million people with a severe food insecurity.
And it's because they literally just can't farm.
Because they can't farm, because in Sudan, because of the child soldier thing, like...
You're also saying there's a shortage of water.
Yeah, and that's seasonal.
Great.
In that area of Sudan, that's what's so fascinating about that area, like... That area dries up.
Sudan. Tell me, where is Sudan in Africa? This is south, north, central, like.
Yeah. Okay. So Sudan, right above it is Egypt, and so then you're gonna go Egypt into Israel.
Okay.
And then
north then.
South Sudan's right next to Uganda and Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm. So it's a whole spot.
Yeah, and Kenya. Kenya's important with them.
And did you, while you were researching any of this, was any of the information starting to bleed into surrounding areas?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how this goes. Because I was starting to learn about I wouldn't say a deep dive. I did a casual educating myself on the Kurds.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole thing.
Tell me about the Kurds.
That's a whole thing. Like I was trying to start in Turkey, and then it's like, no. It's not just Turkey. It's also in Iran, Iraq, and Armenia, right? So I had to watch like this like video that was like, explain to me what this means. Because the thing is, like, most people are like, how do you not know about the Kurds when you were in Afghanistan? It's like, well, because they're not in Afghanistan. Is not the Middle East. That's Asia. Which most people don't. They're like, is that a thing? And I was like, it's very much a thing. Yeah, geography, right? But so basically the way that I would explain it is like, and you chime in if I'm getting any of this sounds like incorrect. Do you have any history of like the Kurd? Like, do you know anything?
No.
Okay, so then I'll just pretend like I know exactly what I'm talking about.
I need to be so confident right now.
So post World War One. When they were doing like all these different treaty signings, and they were
post World War I is before World War II. We're good so far. Let's keep going. Just tracking
so
it.
You do know. When the Ottoman Empire dissolved, they had to rewrite all these boundaries where the Ottoman Empire used to be, and so when they were like drawing the lines for Turkey, Iran, and all these, different countries that we still see to this day, they never drew a line for Kurdistan, which is like, this entire ethnic group.
Jeez.
So, I've read a little bit throughout like all of my different textbooks in college here and there, where I've definitely heard that the Kurds are like the largest stateless ethnic group on the planet.
Huh.
So they're technically all in like the general area of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, but I would say, from what I understand, that their like majority is in like Turkey. And in order to like fight back against the Turkish government and them not having their own like kind of own land, they started to become like communist. And that's when like this group called the PKK like revolted and tried to rise against the Turkish government. And that's when the Turkish government was like, we don't really want you guys here anymore.
At first, when you were saying they had to start revolting and fighting, I was like, well, why? And then you're like, because they started thinking they were communists. And I was like, okay, that all tracks. I get it now. It's all making more sense.
Right. And being able to say like, and then they were like proclaimed communists. And even the United States pegged them for like terrorists. We called the PKK like terrorists.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it was easy for Turkey to get allies from the United States and other people who were, quote, fighting communism, right? Now, the problem with this is like...
It sounds like everything's going to work out. I don't really think there's been any issues post-World War II with like us recarving up states and countries. No issues currently.
Well, so I'm glad you said that. That kind of like takes me back on track here a little bit. Like as I'm like researching all of this, right? Like obviously Syria is going to come up and like Iran and Iraq, like obvious because there's Kurds there. So like the biggest thing that if you were to sit here and be like, so how do we solve this problem? It's like, well, dude, like maybe give the Kurds like their own land. Well, what's in the Middle East that we've been fighting over for like the longest time? Like oil, right?
Right.
So if you give a certain piece of land to these people, that's a bunch of money that you're losing out on of potential oil and like profit from that. So they're not going to just be like, let's give it to the Kurds, these communists that we like don't like.
Wouldn't it be better if it was always ideological differences? Like part of me, like in some ways I like that like people can be practical. But like the Sudan, I may with my Illuminati hat on sometimes, but like I think it was just because there was oil there, and it had anything to do with the national religion. This
is like a deeply. We grew up in the United States to be like, can you just like hate each other for like your ideals?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
just yell at each other and then go home.
Yeah, can't you just be like the Democrats suck or the Republicans suck and be like be good with that? But no, it's always like. Power and resources, like which we've been kind of getting into here a little bit, but
I guess that's just like showing our ignorance from a place with resources, right? Like,
dude,
if we didn't have resources, maybe like, if I just had some fucking oil, like I could get something done for my people. Like, I get that a little bit too, or I think I get that. I haven't experienced it, so I guess I don't get it.
There's that famous book that French dude wrote in like the 1700s called Democracy in America. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, he came over, like this French like philosopher, writer, historian, whatever you want to call it, came over to the United States while we were doing our whole, 1776, writing our Declaration of Independence and stuff like this. But one of the main things that he straight up said was like, this piece of land is like probably the most prime real estate on the planet.
Yeah.
And like, that's what you're saying is like, we got all these resources. I mean, and then not only to go even further, like you and I live in California.
It's awesome. I love it.
Like agriculture, I heard that specifically in Solano County that like we weren't really affected by the Great Depression. Yeah. Because there was just so many resources and things like this. Like,
it's expensive, but every couple months, Hannah and I go to Davis, and then we eat at fancy restaurants where they get the food that they farmed out in Davis, and I'm like, this is pretty neat.
Have you been to the farmers market at Davis?
Oh, it's a great farmers market.
World class.
I have a cookbook about the Davis farmers market.
Do you?
I do.
I have often gotten like local meats there.
This is the most crunchy granola you and I have been together. This is nice.
We sound like some NorCal.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. You're wearing your Birkenstocks,
I am wearing
dude.
Birkenstocks.
And you have an Apple phone over there. Yeah, this is
Good.
perfect.
We're the right people to talk about conflicts in the Middle East currently. We're who they want to represent them.
Yes, we understand real conflict.
Speaking of that, wait, was there anything more on the Kurds? I'm more confused than when you started.
But so, dude, that's the thing is like,
Right.
trust me, I've listened to like at least, and this obviously doesn't make me an expert on the
Right.
matter, but I've listened to like 5 separate podcasts. Like I've straight up, I've watched tons of videos, and like every single historian and person like covering it in journalism is like, this is very nuanced. This is very complicated. And like, recently with the whole, I was talking to my coworker about this today, like recently with the whole like Syria thing going on,
Right.
like how they have a civil war going on, right?
Right.
And bunch of refugees left Syria to go to Turkey, and a lot of them were Kurds. And like right now, Turkey is like, we don't really want them here anymore. Like we took care of them, but I think we're good now. And so they were trying to make this, I don't know if you've heard this, but like the safe zone. They were trying to make this safe zone, which was like 48 kilometers wide and like 248 kilometers long, this little safe zone in North Syria where these refugees could just go chill while Syria just battles it out, this civil war.
Jesus.
And while Trump was in office, he took us out of Syria and was like, maybe we should just let them like have their own fight. And like, I was talking to my coworker about this where I was like, man, like, I kind of agree with that, but because it's coming out of his mouth, I'm like, but do I agree with that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Could
Anyway.
someone else say it also?
But anyway, I guess long story short, the entire situation with the Kurds in Turkey and Syria and Iran and Iraq is a fucking mess, bro.
Okay.
I'm sure as you were studying Africa, you're like, whew, this is a whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, you can't just fake this. Like, you actually have to like do some deep diving. And that's the thing is like, I didn't see a lot of like, when I typed into YouTube, it was like, well, CNN 6 days ago was talking about,
Right,
Syria.
exactly.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
Like you have to, not a lot of people are covering it. And part of me is wondering if it's not like, it's not like a glamorous, fun thing to learn about. I don't know. Maybe Ukraine's the hot topic right now.
Yeah, the Ukraine one's weird because we had also read for our book club last month, The Great Mortality, and it randomly went in depth about the history of Ukrainian sex slaves, which is like very topical right now. Like,
Yeah, that didn't age well.
the 1300s did not age well. All right, so I found for my second one, I got on like this. So one of my great friends, Uzo, is from Nigeria, and so I was like, oh, I wonder how Nigeria is doing. Not great, but like Uzo's doing great. She has a restaurant. It's like I always see it on Instagram. It looks like it's popping off. Like,
Where though? In Nigeria?
in Nigeria, yeah.
Oh, no
she
shit.
went back after college.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
I was over here thinking like, oh yeah, in Davis somewhere.
No, she has it's like a taco shop. And
Let's go.
it looks fucking awesome.
I mean, let's not go right now, but
I just don't think I was like freaking out. I was like, oh, do I need to call Uzo? Like, is this going down? But it looks like it's mainly in like the very eastern part. But I'm going to back up and then I'll get to what's going on in the conflict.
send it.
So, well, the very first thing is Boko Haram was going on, right? Boko Haram in Nigeria, which know very little about.
I was gonna say, dude, I've heard Boko Haram.
Yeah.
That sounds like something I should know about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So, you would like this as a former Intel guy. Must be flagged a million times for my latest searches. And I did one at work at lunch, and I'm on the spotlight on global jihad. And I'm like,
no.
I don't think I should be on this on my work computer.
Yeah, bro.
It's my lunch hour, but I don't think this is
No.
okay. So I might get an email, but that's okay. But I wanted, because we're battle buddies. I'm trying to learn like actual battle things.
I'm
going
trying
on.
to educate myself.
I am. I'm trying to not put my head in the sand. I'm trying to understand how battles really work. And I got on this threat tactics report of Boko Haram from 2015. And it really did teach me a lot. But it has to do with Boko Haram being like the new organization that formed in 2009. And it goes against the Nigerian government. As far as I can tell, it's just like related to ISIS in some way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So it's like an Islamic extremist thing?
Yeah, so it's influenced from the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, to whom Boko Haram recently swore allegiance. And this is from 2015. Anyway, so there was that, right? Like that was going down. And let me get to my next little...
Oh, look at their little... Dude, check out... This is like their symbol.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So if you remember why they got famous, right? They were stealing all the women and children and were trying to make them all slaves. It was rough.
Recently?
No, this was a while ago when this was all a thing.
It says it was founded in 2002.
That's crazy.
That feels recent-y.
Yeah. No, it's super recent. So anyway, why that's important is looking in like February, some crazy things happened in terms of ISIS, which was, and I didn't know this. Did you know that the leader of ISIS was killed in February?
Oh, we got him?
We got him.
I feel like I heard this February.
This February, it was. I read the
Where
whole.
was it at,
I read
bro?
the whole
In
report
Africa?
of it. No, but it has to do with a lot of shit that's been going down.
This is the problem with this shit, bro.
Yeah.
It gets complicated
It gets so
really
complicated.
quick.
So in February 2nd, the U.S. Special Forces went to in Syria. In Syria, they went to Abu Ibrahim. I'm not gonna say the rest of his name because it's really
the president?
long.
Is that the president? Or is that
He's supposed to be the supposed leader of ISIS, and they're like, dude, you got to come out. And this fucking asshole blows himself and his family up instead. So like his family and his friends and his like they all just die, and his neighbors, because he blows himself up instead.
You know, I don't use this term lightly, but that's a dick move.
It's a dick move.
It really
And
is.
I'm like, what a dick! Like, but then I'm reading more about it, and obviously things are never as simple as I would like them to be. And you know, he seems like a pretty smart guy, who, like, he studied Islamic law. He served as a lieutenant in the Iraqi army, but he studied under Saddam Hussein, which probably wasn't great in the long run. And then he only really became a radical after the U.S. forces entered Iraq. And so
wait, we should not have gone into Iraq?
it's just like reading through, I'm like, why isn't it simple though? Like, I don't want to live in paradoxes, and it's
Oh God, dude.
it's just such a paradox. Like he lives in contradictions, and it must have been really intense being that guy, because he's clearly smarter than I was if he led such an intense organization.
Maybe.
It sucks.
Maybe.
So anyway, he died, which the report in February from the Spotlight on Global Jihad was like, might be good. And then it says at the end, might not be good. And it turns out it has not been great, because it's the month of Ramadan.
Right? Didn't Eid just happen?
Yeah, and so because of that, there's the ISIS has been publishing a ton, and they've been really increasing their levels of attacks.
Did you print this out at work?
Yeah. I'm telling you, I got flagged so hard. I did it on my break.
Yeah, so at the end of Ramadan they have Eid, right? It's like their it's like where they get to eat and like have a festival.
Yeah, this is also came up in the report. They were showing the photos. So like when ISIS, I didn't know how much language ISIS uses, but this report, every month when they release it, they talk about ISIS's fight for heart and soul, or heart and mind. It's something like they call it. And they're talking about the rhetoric and the language that ISIS is trying to use to capture people and like make people become part of ISIS, which is, I think, very relevant to things that I'm interested in.
Bro.
And what they were publishing this last month, which I thought was probably very effective to people that are disenfranchised or on the borders of becoming radical, is they posted photos of people in tons of different regions, and they're all members of ISIS just sitting together and eating. And like, here, you can look at it. They're lovely pictures. Like, they're just sitting around eating, celebrating their faith. And like, that's probably pretty powerful if you are a radical reading this.
Look at all this delicious food.
Yeah.
So wait, you said that they were saying that they want to win the hearts and the minds of people.
That's what this report calls it every month. They have a name for it. Because they do like the same things every month when they're measuring the changes.
So do you want to know why that is interesting to me?
Yeah, I do.
When we went to Afghanistan, we said that we wanted to win the hearts and the minds of the local populace.
Whoa, no, you didn't.
Verbatim.
Okay, so this is called the Battle for Hearts and Minds. That's the section. That's the subheading that they use every month on this report.
That's like the same shit we said.
So I wonder. So this is from.
I'm wondering if they got that from us, bro.
It might have been. This is from the Israeli Intelligence Heritage and Commemoration Center, which I'm really liking these reports. I've read through a bunch of them.
Where did you find all this? Just on the internet?
Yeah,
that's a dumb question.
I went down a deep, weird hole. Anyway,
I know, dude. I know.
So I wanted to focus on a specific battle, and it's been hard. So that happened, and so there's been a lot more terror attacks. And an area in eastern Nigeria that's like, it comes up in all these reports over the years that I've been reading about, has to do with this forest in Lake Chad. So like Lake Chad's in like the northeast section, I think. And there's this forest.
Is Lake Chad just filled with a bunch of bros who...
I'm like reading through, like, this is terrible. That's a funny name for a lake. That's a silly lake name.
I had a high schooler recently just explain to me what a Chad is.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they called me a Chad. And then when I looked up what it meant, I was like, you guys are just jealous, bro. That's how I interpreted it.
You know, when people... I've never heard somebody in real life call somebody else a Chad, because it's usually like...
I hang out with... I shouldn't say I hang out with high schoolers. That sounds gross. But, I help teach high schoolers.
Yeah.
So I am educated every day on certain terminology. Like, did you know that the kids say these days, bet? Have you heard this?
I haven't heard bet yet.
They say bet. So like, you're like, hey man, tomorrow I'm gonna bring you some Taco Bell for lunch. Like, bet. It's like, no, I'm not betting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm letting you know I'm going to do that. It's not a bet, but yeah, bet for sure.
That's a cool one. That one's been around for a
You
while.
like that one?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard it. I'm out of touch.
So, okay, I'm going to go through... So there's this forest, right? The Sambisa forest. And it keeps coming up, and so I was reading a little bit more about it. It seems to be just like this epicenter of activity between people fighting Boko Haram or people fighting against Islamic terrorists. Mm-hmm. And it came up in this tactical report, and I'm wondering if you can give me a little insight into it. But I'm going to try to explain it before I show you the drawing.
Okay.
So this has to do with a complex defensive position. And what happens is there's these little villages in this forest, right? And so Boko Haram has captured a bunch of people, and they're staying in this little village. And the Nigerian military, they're going to go from the south, the southeast, and from like the northwest. And they're going to use kind of like a pincer move in on the village. Yeah.
Like coming from both angles?
From
kinda?
all three angles, yeah.
Interesting.
And what happens is as they start coming in, they start hitting mines.
Oof.
And that alerts the Boko Haram that they're coming.
Yeah, they gave away their position.
Yeah. And then essentially the Boko Haram fight for a little bit, and then they hightail it out the only direction that's available, which would be northeast. Is that like a fairly typical... So I'm going to show you the map now after my great description of it. Is that like a fairly typical tactical strategy that you would see in a conflict of this sort, or like in a foresty situation?
Coming from all angles. This is good. This is a nice little graphic here.
Right?
Yeah, dude. So you see all these symbols. It shows like a diamond, and it's red, and it shows the blue rectangle with like the X. We learn all those symbols in Intel school. Like this is all super legit. Whoever
Well, I think this is an official military report.
I think this is an intelligence summary, dude.
Yeah. So
This
my question is
dope.
like, is that 3-pronged kind of attack?
Battles position.
Is that pretty common?
Depends on who the fighting
Okay.
force is,
Okay.
man. Like I haven't done any research on these guys, but seeing the verbiage here with like the word like complex battle position. I mean, perhaps because of because you can even see like the topographical lines here that are showing like all the different elevations and stuff.
Right.
Maybe they didn't have a choice. Like maybe
Okay.
you know
Maybe
what
those
I mean?
are the directions. Maybe that's why the mines were so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
Yeah.
it was more of a battle of like the atmosphere and like the jungle. This is a jungle type thing going on here.
So it's called the forest, but I looked it up and it looks more like a brush, like a high desert. Like there is some trees, but all the pictures I saw were more like that it'd be pretty flat and then there would be like a tiny, tiny valley that a river had kind of eroded. And so like they run out of like the little valley of the river.
It's interesting because they circled Boko Haram and they're calling it a complex battle position. That's interesting to me. And then it shows all these blue arrows. That's literally how we used to like take like white markers and draw all these types of things when we were studying like Iran and all that. This is cool. Where'd you just straight? It like says unclassified on this and everything.
Yeah, so I
Look at
found
this,
that
dude.
image off some deep searching, and then it went to Wiki Commons or something, and it's like, this is allowed. Essentially, it was like, we're allowed to have this image because it came from the military under declassified something.
Yeah,
or
this is
other.
cool. This
Yeah.
is like some open source, straight up intelligence, dude.
I'm flagged 100%.
Yes. Yeah, dude. Good job. That's awesome.
So I wanted that because I'm going to read you what just happened. And I think that this looks pretty similar to what I'm reading. Because when I was reading it, the problem with a ton of this ISIS stuff is that it's all reported from ISIS. So like, all right, I'll take this with the biggest grain of salt,
Yeah.
I guess. Like, like Jesus. So, all right, let's see. There's 2 events. On April 19th, 2 commanders of ISIS's West Africa province were killed by Boko Haram while moving at night to a newly established camp in the Sambisa forest in Borno State, northeastern Nigeria, which is confusing because that means that ISIS and Boko Haram are not always on good terms. So that seems like a net win for us, right? If ISIS and Boko Haram are fighting each other,
I mean,
seems awesome.
yeah.
Just have fun.
Let it.
On April 22nd, clashes broke out in the area between operatives on ISIS's West African province and Boko Haram operatives. A total of 32 operatives on both sides were killed. It should be noted that the Sambisa forest is one of the epicenters of activities of the 2 organizations, which have had violent clashes for quite some time. Concerning the Boko Haram activity in Nigeria, Nigerian Defense Minister Bashir Magishi noted that in the recent attacks carried out by Boko Haram in the north of the country, the organization collaborated with criminal elements.
I'm curious to know what the main dispute is here between Boko Haram and ISIS, even though they're both extremist militant groups right.
Right.
I'm really curious to figure out what again, and it goes back to what you and I were saying, is like, are they fighting over ideals here?
Right,
Or is
exactly. And it could be an ideological war because ISIS is pretty intense about their ideals.
Oh, God.
Like that seems to be how they get people to join them.
Interesting. So right now, as we speak, like days ago, Boko Haram and ISIS were duking it out in...
Yeah, and I wonder if it's like a territory thing because ISIS is pushing into Nigeria in different ways. Like they've had 2 different attacks. Let me find the states.
I'm just baffled by that because it's like, you guys are you not fighting for the same thing?
I think they would take great offense to that, right? Isn't that the whole reason? Like, you ignorant white American,
You
like
fucking moron.
But so ISIS. Okay, I'm gonna need you to clarify a couple terms for me real quick.
Let's see if I can.
This came up a lot in like Russian attacks with Taliban or ISIS or whatever recently. A sortie?
So a sortie, we actually learned this while we were studying Thermopylae. A sortie is attacking from a defensive position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because they were doing
when you're
sorties.
on the defense and you. So remember when Leonidas and his folks, they're like defending, and then while like they're like retreating in between, they're like suppressing fire.
Yeah.
That's when they would go out and attack while they were on the defense. That's a sortie.
All right, you can't tell my students I forgot a vocab word. They'll never let me live it down.
Well, interestingly enough, I always thought that a sortie was helicopter missions. That's what in my like younger brain, like I think I interpreted it from somebody saying a sentence and I tried to use context clues. And I was like, helicopter missions?
I was telling Hannah, I was like, I think a sortie just means it's a short mission. And she's like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because they're saying they were doing sorties with their fighter jets, like they're just like dropping bombs. And so that makes sense because they are probably on the defensive with that Air Force base.
So RTIE or Y?
IE.
I'll look it up and make sure I'm not crazy. Yeah. A sudden issuing of troops from a defensive position against the enemy.
Okay. Well, okay, that makes more sense. Okay,
It comes from the French word and Latin root meaning to like rise up. But in it also, here it is again,
Love
though.
my etymology.
It also can in aviation mean a military aviation. A sortie is a combat mission of an individual aircraft. So I think in this.
So in that one, it would be
Yep.
Okay.
So me from the past wasn't wrong about when I heard
No.
helicopters.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, so it is an AV. Your father-in-law,
Yeah.
he's
He
going to
would
be
know.
mad at us for this.
No, he doesn't get mad over this
How
stuff.
dare you not know what a sortie is, you fools!
I would love if you talked to me that way.
You guys
I
grew
wouldn't.
up,
I'd freak out.
we grew up next to Travis Air Force Base. You would think we'd every once in a while be like, you guys see the sorties they were doing last night?
That'd be cool. Like Travis Air Force just passed around some vocab. Here's some words you might want to know.
Right.
Okay. That one has no bearing on what I'm been learning about, but it was coming up. My next one is on, just has like a not stupid. I have the luxury of living in just like such peace that like the word IED, I know it's an individual explosive device. Improvised. But I don't understand necessarily like why it's used in every single one of these attacks. It seems like it's used in over the last 2 weeks every day by ISIS. So like what?
This is the way.
Like yeah, like how is it in your experience? Like what the fuck is an IED? Like how do you?
Dude,
see
it's essentially a bomb that they place underground that goes off by pressure.
Okay, so it's usually a mine.
Yeah, that's what we would call it. Yeah.
Okay,
But these are like, bro, these IEDs. I mean, they do definitely depending on where you're at. I obviously have more knowledge of the ones that they were using in Afghanistan, but
right.
They were either super janky and they would often go off while they were like placing them in the ground,
Right.
Or they were pretty complex and like you're like, oh, okay, these guys look like they knew what they were doing, but for the most part, it was like. It looks like somebody was like, I found somebody's shed in their backyard and found all these like tools and made myself an IED. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're kind of like
Okay, that makes more sense.
cheap bombs is like really what they are.
Well, because like a lot of times it says they're activated. Like that's the language that they use. And so like that made me think like, is this a mine or is this like remote activated or is this thrown?
Good question. And so like interestingly enough, right? So they used to do like. What we had in Afghanistan was we had these things attached to like the front of our MRAPs, which is like, you know, the modern day Humvee.
Yeah.
We would put these like attach these things to the front of them so that the IED would go off when this thing in front of us would hit the ground rather than hitting the actual MRAP itself.
Right.
Well, they actually started figuring that out. And so they would place the pressure plate like way far ahead. That way, when it went over, our MRAP would be over the explosion. So, like, they're not stupid.
No.
But yeah, essentially, dude, a mine.
Okay.
Improvised explosive device, yeah. And then you get into the weeds, and there's like Bro, there's probably hundreds of different types of IEDs.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Vehicle-borne IEDs.
Right.
There's a shitload.
I think there was one that was just done in a mosque, right? I think there was one that was just done in like Israel somewhere.
If it wasn't in Ukraine, I probably don't know about it.
I'm not going to go into it because I don't have it on hand. Of the one I wanted to talk about, though, just the last one in Nigeria. It's been crazy in Nigeria. I'm just really feeling for them.
Are you gonna learning all of this stuff? Are you gonna start to kind of keep track and like every once in a while like look into what's going on in Nigeria?
Yeah, absolutely.
See, it feels like you understand a little bit more about that, right?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
Cool.
Following Sudan and Nigeria.
That's cool.
So, what was happening? This one was like?
So what happened was
Not like just desserts, but like, because I'm not sure, everything's so complex. Like I can't just hate blindly, even though I want to, but I don't like Boko Haram or ISIS.
No,
I'm not sad.
Not fan.
But
not
like,
a fan.
I know that just like the blind hatred is what keeps giving them more people. So I'm torn. Anyway, that's my issue that I'm still working out. Nigeria just reported that over 70 operatives of Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa province had turned themselves in to local security forces following the activity of coalition forces, the Nigerian Air Force airstrikers. So good for you guys. And the greatest warrior of all, famine. That was, you can't beat hunger. You can't do it. Supply lines every time.
You're not wrong.
The more I'm learning about these wars and battles, man, if you can get people hungry, like my students, when they're even just a little bit hungry, they're just off the wall.
I mean, I got to be honest. I'm personally not great to be around when I'm hungry. I was earlier today, dude, before I came over here, before I had dinner, my wife, we made dinner a little bit late today. I was like getting like dizzy, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, man, dude, my blood sugar is low. I sound like a 55-year-old.
That's not great. Well, then it makes you like, what's the difference? I often wonder about that because sometimes I too will feel very hungry. And I'm like, oh. But you clearly, as unfortunately people have learned, can go a long time without eating. So like,
extremely long.
Is it that feeling forever? Does the feeling kind of go away?
We literally live in a time where like it's a fad to like fast right now.
Yeah.
Like intermittent fasting is a thing.
It's dope.
It is actually really dope. Are you ready to change lanes, or do you have more on Boko Haram?
I have so much more Boko Haram, but we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Okay.
We're good. Just one big shout out to the Nigerian military for just fucking crushing it. They got 70 operatives of Boko Haram and ISIS to turn themselves in. That's dope.
That is dope.
That's dope. That's like the coolest thing. That happened this month, guys. Like that's a win for everybody. You might get information. You didn't kill people. Awesome.
Can you imagine? Like imagine if, I'm trying to think of like if we had a terrorist group here in the United States that our straight up military had to fight.
Yeah.
That would be...
Can you imagine them trying to turn themselves in and us taking them? No way. No way.
Come and get them.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So like
Molon Labe.
Props to them for like putting on the pressure. And then when they're like, we give, and you're like, all right.
That's badass.
We're going to get more from you by keeping you alive. It's awesome.
Keepers of the faith, bro.
Yeah, we're going to make you rot. And that's going to be a better punishment.
So Mexico.
Simple. Another simple place in the world. The world is so simple.
Things get real simple when we bring up Mexico. So I sent you that little infographic thing of like all the things happening on the planet right now. It's like
just another one of those positive messages Spencer sends me at like midnight.
Hey, bud, hope everything's great. Here's all the people dying right now.
I'm playing Civilization 6 with like a diplomacy. Like I'm conquering the world through my just badass culture. Like I'm making everybody read books.
What country are you?
Well, that one usually like France, because France is like aggressively culture based. And so like I'm turning other people against themselves because I'm making them read so much. Like, I just love it.
Yeah, that's the worst weapon. Just educate them. They'll get pissed off with how much they understand. So this is something that I learned that I can absolutely confess that I was not privy to this in any way, shape, or form. But last year, did you hear about the Mexican midterm elections?
No.
Okay, so neither did I. This was the largest midterm election in Mexican history. 20,000 plus candidates ran for office. 20,000.
Whoa.
There was 15 governors and 500 seats up for grabs in their Congress. Now, the governorships is pretty important in Mexico, right? So they have like provinces, and if you are a governor of a province, you are in charge of the police force.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. And so their electoral body is not like ours where we have like an electoral college. It's a centralized system. And, bro, Mexico didn't have a democratic elective society until the year 2000.
What?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
I for sure thought when you were starting, you were just going to talk about how, like, we restricted avocado trade for a month. Like, everyone freaked out in California. Like, you mean I'm not going to get avocados for 12 months of the year?
Don't fuck with my avocados, dude. We were just talking about hunger. Like, keeping avocados out of my California burrito is not cool, dude. So
Right.
the point being, this, like, democratic society is pretty new to the game there. What, 22 years old? I'm older than their democracy, like their current democracy.
So it hasn't even gone through its, like, Backstreet Boys phase. Like, it's just getting out of that one. It's like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, and then it's
Bro,
moving
some of the
on.
music coming out of Mexico is amazing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Jesse and Joy, have you heard of them?
No.
Oh, dude, it's good shit. Like, for real, their music is hella good.
Yeah, I bet.
It's probably because they're in like the 90s right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just always see their classical guitarists on Instagram. I'm always following them, trying to learn their Spanish real quick so I can see what they're doing.
Even like that. I mean, I'm from California, so I might be biased here, but I fucks with the mariachi stuff, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I get down with that. I also immediately get hungry, but yeah. So last midterm election, there were 90 murders to the candidates that ran for office. And so, I was trying to look up videos, right? There was only two CNN videos. They were CNN International, which is not like mainstream CNN stuff, right?
That's like CNN 10.
Right. Right. So I watched two of these videos, dude, and they show you like some of like the candidates like commercials, like their propaganda.
Yeah.
And this one candidate, dude, he is like, I'm putting my hand down, like I'm not scared of shit. Like, I'm trying to fight corruption here. He's talking about all these things that he's going to be fighting in Mexico.
Oh, what a badass.
Next shot is him getting like, taken into an ambulance because he got murked on the street, like straight up shot. But dude, this is like not just like getting shot, but they're like chopping off heads,
Yeah.
hanging people from bridges.
Oh, my God.
Like 90 murders. And I'm like, again, I am baffled that I didn't hear any of this.
Yeah.
Baffled. And it's all because so we were talking, I'm glad that you brought this up, and this was unrehearsed, but I literally was writing down here in my notes that ideological identities mean nothing in these acts of violence.
Right. Yeah.
It's legitimately about who has the power. It's a
Yeah.
power struggle. It has nothing to do with left versus right like it is in the United States. Different seats of power control different things in Mexico. And like I was telling you, like the governorships, it's really about who controls the police, because if you can keep the police force corrupt, then you can control the drugs flowing through there and all that.
Yeah.
And so that was, for me, I really couldn't find any more hard, good information on the matter.
That's crazy.
That's really all I could find was just, 90 people got murdered in the largest. And then they were saying, and I didn't look too deep into it, but in 2018, The presidential election was even worse, apparently.
What?
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's definitely one of those things where I'd love to keep learning about it because, I mean, we're pretty close to Mexico.
We're pretty close. We both have been there within the last couple of years.
Oh, for sure, dude. Yeah, no, crazy, dude. Crazy, but that's how it goes.
You know, it's not often that, like, I feel really thankful that we can have people screaming at Biden and screaming at Trump and being like, thank you. Thanks for doing that.
Oh, right, dude.
But now I'm like, little relativity might be a good for Kevin here. Like,
dude, I try to keep the mindset always of like, man, it's so cool that we can just talk shit about our, you know, our government.
Well, it's just, you know, you bake in it so long, you're like, this is out of control and like it's so violent, and then you're like, wait, that's the wrong word. Violent's the wrong word.
Yeah, right.
Most of the time.
Because like we live here in Vacaville, and like I'll be at a stop sign and see a sticker on a stop sign that's like, fuck Joe Biden. And you're like, ooh, that's like really intense for me at a stop sign. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but it's really intense.
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time like, good. I'm glad we can do that.
I'm glad that we can get away. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad we can get away with that, and nobody's getting murdered today.
No one's getting murdered.
They're getting murdered, but for other reasons.
You could look at it as, how sad is that like the way that we can accept it is like, well, at least we're not all killing each other. That's how I feel like every once in a while someone's like, you're such a good dad. I'm like, I think sometimes maybe the bar is very low. Because I don't know if I've done anything but play games I like to play today.
Your standards are out of this world. Yeah.
I also like tag. It's not just my son. Like, I don't know if the bar is really that high right now.
Yeah. No, I'm basically a child. And then I guess, do you have any more, or did we cover your two?
We covered them. Let me just look in the Battle for Hearts and Mind. I'm glad that you were interested in that as well. I was hoping.
No, dude, that's awesome. I think that whatever dark web corner of the world that you went on, you found some good material here. I wish that we had like one of these days, dude, we'll film us talking and people can see what we're looking at.
That'd be cool. Well, I was thinking we could set up an Instagram to post like I
think we should do that.
Orders.
And like some of the books that we read and things like this.
Okay, so I just wanted to, as a final tidbit, just share what ISIS, because ISIS sends out like weekly articles, which I didn't know about.
What?
Yeah.
On what format?
See, this
Instagram?
They have their own media system.
Do they?
It calls it a media system. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's more than one modality? Does that mean that they're doing they're like pamphlets, like World War II pamphlets, and people that have like internet, they're doing like some internet thing? Like, I bet they are. Like, I mean,
it's their propaganda, right?
Right. And
well, you were straight up sent those pictures of them eating. Like that put out on their little.
Yeah, that was from their articles and stuff. And so like, I bet, like, the ignorant me is like, how could people ever join ISIS? And then the me that's thinking about being like really hungry and like just seeing people devastating my land anyway, and then seeing like a pamphlet of like dudes practicing my faith and eating food, I'm like, well, they get it. Like, you know, like, it'd be really
doesn't look like they're starving at all.
No, yeah, and they're practicing my faith, like, dope. Like,
yeah. Hey, I mean, imagine how kids after high school join the military, dude.
Yeah. Like, rhetoric is strong. Like, rhetoric is a really powerful thing. So, anyway, we'll just go through there.
Do you know a thing or two about that?
I fucking love rhetoric. Love it. Well, and quick side note, like, I love Obama's State of the Unions. I make my students watch them every year because I'm like, this is masterclass rhetoric. Like, when he talks about marriage, like, you'll see his hand kind of turned towards so you can see his ring. Like, the dude is phenomenal manipulator. Whether you think that's good or bad, don't care. The dude knows what he's doing. And there's like videos on YouTube of him editing with his speechwriters before it, and it's awesome because they're circling like, we don't need to use that word again. We've already used that word. Like, it's total Aaron Sorkin mode. It's like every year I'm like, I should do one of Donald Trump's. Like, whether you like Donald Trump or not, like, I've never heard someone say like, you know, he fucking crushed it at the State of the Union. That dude was phenomenal. Like,
Hey, maybe do George Bush. Maybe do W.
Yeah, right.
Maybe do W. That's funny. I always noticed in interviews, like Obama, when he was trying to make like certain points with like the interviewer, he would like touch them on the knee. He like, hey, and then like call them by their first name. Anyway, like you were saying with manipulation, it's just interesting.
it's just rhetoric. Like, we all manipulate. That's why we talk to each other. So, okay, the lead article of this week was called One Country and United Raids, which they put a translation, it just means terrorist attacks, which devoted to the campaign of vengeance, which essentially was all because their leader got executed. And then the one before that, which was also super interesting, which was called The Jihad of the Believers, which is a dope ass title. Like, that title is so interesting sounding.
You're only saying that because you've read a lot of Dune.
It is. I was like, this sounds like Paul Muad'Dib is just like talking. And then so I was like, I don't know what the fuck Jihad of the Believers is. So it's the name of the, you're going to love this. It's the same name of ISIS's recently released series of propaganda videos documenting their operatives on various provinces, pledging allegiance to ISIS's new leader. So it's just a series of propaganda with like another series of videos. So they're just branding right now.
Naming it the jihad of, what is it? The something believers.
The Jihad of the Believers. And so they're branding it. So they see this article like the Jihad of the Believers, and then it pops up on their YouTube. They're like, the Jihad of the Believers. I just read that article.
It's like the Big Lebowski and the Little Achievers.
Oh, it's brutal.
Wow, man. This is all happening in Africa.
This is happening all over. This is just ISIS shit.
So that's also could be happening in Syria.
Yeah, this is all probably more in
over.
Syria-related areas.
I got my eyes glued to the screen now with this whole Turkey, Syria. That whole thing is pretty fascinating to me.
Yeah.